So in this latest video looking at decimals, we'll be focusing on adding and subtracting, including money questions. Now when adding and subtracting decimals, the most important thing is presentation. Now when using the same method for adding and subtracting with whole numbers, you must ensure the following points. So one is that the decimal points go in the same place for all the numbers. The second point is that for whole numbers, the decimal point goes at the end, just like you would with a full stop at the end of a sentence. And the third point is that if you have any gaps in any of the numbers, fill them with zeros. So let's have a look and go straight into some examples. So with question 1, let's get a decent colour pen, let's go for pink. So with question 1, we've got 8.6 plus 5.9. So here I'm going to do 8.6, and I'm going to put my decimal point directly underneath the first number, and I'm going to have 5, 9. And now all I'm going to do here is just simply add the numbers as I would with incorporating the decimal point. Now the key thing to establish here is that my decimal points are all in the same column. And it's really important that they're directly underneath each other. It makes working with these questions just that so much easier. So working with this question, I've got 6 plus 9, which is 15. And I carry the 1, and I've got 1 plus 8, which is 9, plus 5, which is 14. So it gives me an answer of 14.5. Now with question 2. Now here with question 2, I've got a one number that's got one number after the decimal point, and for the second number I've got two numbers after the decimal point. So again, I've got 11.9, and I'm going to put my decimal point directly underneath, and then I'm going to have 7, 4, 8. Now as you can see, I've got a few empty gaps, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add a 0 here, and what I then need to do is do the calculation. So again, the key point is the fact that I've got my decimal point all in the same column, directly underneath each other, and any empty gaps that I may have, I'm just going to fill them with zeros. So here I've got 0 plus 8, which is 8, 9 plus 4, which is 13, and carry the 1, let me just get rid of that arrow. Carry the 1, 1 plus 1 plus 7 is 9, and I've got 1. So the answer here is 19.38. And then finally for question 3, so here again I've got 2 digits and a 1 digit after the decimal points respectively. So I've got 94.57, and again my decimal point is going to go directly underneath, and I've got 33.2, and again I'm adding those up. So in terms of the first point, the decimal point is in the exact same location for both those numbers. So next thing I've got to do is, I can see an empty gap, so I'm going to fill that with a 0. And then from here, all I then need to do is just perform the addition. So 7 plus 0 is 7, 5 plus 2 is 7, got my decimal point, 4 plus 3 is 7, and 9 plus 3 is 12. So giving me a total answer of 127.77, and there is my final answer. So let's have a look at some subtraction questions. So question 4. So again, I've got 9.2 and I've got 7.9. And again, make sure that the decimal point is in the exact same location for both those two numbers. So again, using the rules of subtractions, that the top number has got to be bigger. And if not, you need to borrow 1. So I'm going to borrow 1 off the 9. So that becomes 8, and I've got 12. So 12 take away 9 is 3, and 8 take away 7 is 1, giving me a final answer of 1.3. With question 5, I've got 53.8, and I've got 19.06. So again, decimal point in the exact same location for both the numbers. So what you don't want to do is write it like 15.8 and 19.06. You can see here that the decimal points are not directly underneath each other. They're all over the place. And again, presentation is the most important thing when it comes to working with decimals. So again, I can see I've got an empty gap, so I'm going to fill that with a 0. So I've got all my numbers having the same number of numbers after the decimal point. So now I'm going to perform my subtraction. So again, I could borrow 1 from there, so that becomes a 7, that becomes a 10. So I've got 10 take away 6, which is 4, 7 take away 0, which is 7, and then I've got to borrow 1 off the 5, so that becomes a 4, that becomes 13. 13 take away 9 is 4, 3, and give me a final answer of 34.74. And then finally with question 6, I've got 70.94 minus 48.4. And again, my decimal points are in the same location. Actually, it's just slightly off, so let me just correct that. It's not really setting a very good example. There we go. And let's just draw my line and taken away. And you can see there I've got an empty gap, so I'm going to fill that with a 0. And it's just a case then performing the subtraction. So 4 take away 0 is 4. 9 take away 4 is 5. I need to borrow 1 off there, so that becomes a 10. So that becomes 2, giving me a final answer of 22.54. And there we go. So let's now have a look at some worded questions. Now, worded questions are just exactly the same. All you've got to do is turn it into more numerical question. But the important thing in here is reading the question carefully. So here it says, Stanley stacks 3 books on top of each other. The first book is 2.5 centimeters thick. The second book is 1.82 centimeters thick. And the third book is 0.9 centimeters thick. How tall is the stack of books? So what we need to do here is first of all decide, are you adding, subtracting? In this case, we're going to be adding. So here I've got 2.5, which is the first book. I've got the second book, which is 1.82. And I've got the third book, which is 0.9. So again, making sure that my decimal points are all in the same location or going along directly underneath each other, which they all are. And then the next thing I've got to do is add zeros in any empty gaps. So I've put a 0 there and a 0 there, and I am adding all of those numbers together. So here I've got 0 plus 2 plus 0 is 2, 5 plus 8, which is 13, plus 9, which is 22. And then we've got 2 plus 2 plus 1, which is 5 plus 0. And there we go. So the total distance is going to be 5.22, and we just need to remember the units. So it's centimeters, and there is my final answer. So moving on to this question, it says that a family of 4 each take baggage with them on holiday. The baggage allowance per family is 91.2 kilograms. Elle's baggage weighs 21.8 kilograms, and her sister's baggage weighs 31.24 kilograms. Elle's father's baggage weighs 19.03 kilograms, and her mother's baggage weighs 39.59 kilograms. Have the family exceeded the baggage allowance, and if so, by how much? So what we need to do here is recognize what the important parts of the question are. So here we've got the total allowance is 91.2. So the max is 91.2 kilograms. So it is important that you're not just seeing this question and thinking, all right, it's going to add up every single number I can see, because obviously that is going to be a massive flaw. Now here we've got 4 amounts that we need to add. So we've got 21.8, 31.24, 19.03, and 39.59. So here, working with this, we've got 21.8, I've got 31.24, I've got 19.03, and I've got 39.59. And what I need to then do is add all those numbers together. And again, just putting a 0 there, and again, make sure that the decimal point is all in a nice neat column and in the same location for each of those numbers, and again, filling any empty gaps with a 0. So then working this question out, I've got 0 plus 4 plus 3, which is 7, plus 9, which is 16. And then 1 plus 8 plus 2 is 11, plus 0 plus 5 is 16. And adding the 1, so I've got 1 plus 1 plus 1, 3, and that gives me 21. And there we go, just adding the decimal point there. And then I've got 2 plus 2, which is 4, plus 3, 7, 8, and then 11. So looking at this, then the total baggage comes in at 111.66 kilograms. So the question's asking, have the family exceeded the baggage allowance? Yes, they have. So yes, they have exceeded the allowance. And now the next thing I've then got to do is work out what the difference is. So let's just get a different color pen. So we're looking at the difference. So I've got to do 111. So I'm going to pick the biggest number, 0.66. And I'm going to take that away from 91.2. I'm taking them away. So again, I'm going to make sure that I'm filling empty gaps with zeros, and my decimal point is in the exact same place, I should say. So 6 plus 0 is 6. 6 take away 2 is 4. And then 1 take away 1 is 0. I have to borrow 1 off there to make that 11. So, and then we've got 20.46. And then we go back to our answer, and they've exceeded it by 20.46 kilograms. And there is my final answer. Now you probably want to make sure that your structure in how you've written your final answer is a little bit more easier to follow, but I will always strongly recommend that, again, where you get marks in this particular question is making sure you've answered the question, but also showing you working out. So here you can see in, let's just get a different color that I've not used, let's go for purple. So here I've worked out and I've shown that I've added the amounts together to give me my yes that they've exceeded it. And then this point here is my working out of where I calculated the difference. So I'm not going to get any marks just by saying yes. I've got to have some figures or maths to back it up. So moving on to money questions. Now, when working with money questions, it is really important that all the values are in the same units before performing any calculation. So for example, if you have a combination of prices in pounds and pence, convert all the prices so that they're all in pounds. Now, yes, you could convert them all into pence, but then you've then got to, if it goes over 100, you kind of want the question written in pounds. So I would always recommend that you convert all the prices into pounds in the first place. So for example, if you had 45 pence, then that would be converted into 0.45. If you had 13 pence, then that would be converted to 0.13. 87 pence would be converted to 0.87. 6% would be 0.06. 4 pence would be 0.04. And 32 pence would be 0.32. Now, obviously, if you had something as, let's say, 324 pence, then that would be £3.24. The key thing to the difference is knowing the difference between 60 pence and 6 pence. Well, 60 pence would be 0.60 and 6 pence would be 0.06. So just make sure that you're aware of those, because it's very easy to make these types of mistakes. And usually if you're going to go wrong, then that's usually where the mistakes come from. So let's go straight into an example question. So here it says that Jasmine spends £12.50, 95 pence and £2.62 in a shop. And part A then says, how much does she spend altogether? So for A, what I need to do is add those three amounts together. So I've got 12.50. I've got 95 pence. Now I'm going to convert the 95 pence into 0.95 so that all the prices are now in pence. So I've got 0.95 and I've got £2.62. So again, I'm going to add them up. Now there's no zeros for me to add, and all my decimal points are in a nice neat column. So for this, let's use green. So I've got 0 plus 5 plus 2, which is 7. 5 plus 9, which is 14, plus 6, which is 20. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6, and I've got the 1. So she spends a total of, £16.07. Now it's no need for you to write the P, because you've got the units of pounds, that's going to be absolutely fine. So moving on to question B, the question then says, how much change does she get from a £20 note? So for B, what I need to do is convert £20, and I've got my decimal point at the end. So even though there is no decimal point in £20, as we said at the start of the video, if you've got a whole number, treat it as a full stop. So the decimal point goes at the end, and then I've got £16 and 7 pence to deduct. Now you can see there I've got a few empty gaps, so I'm going to fill them with zeros, and then I can perform my subtraction. So again, I'm going to have to borrow straight from the 2, so that becomes a 1, that becomes a 10, which then turns into a 9, that then turns into a 9, and that becomes a 10. So here I've got 10 take away 7, which is 3, 9 take away 0, which is 9, 9 take away 6, which is 3, and I've got a 0. So the change equals £3 and 93 pence. And then moving on to the second question. So it says Dinesh spends a very similar question, has £9, £1.56, 32 pence and £7.39 in a shop. How much does he spend? So again, what we need to do here is with part A. So I've got 9, and again I'm going to make sure that first of all, let's make sure that the units are all the same. So again, with £9, I'm going to recognize that that is 9.00. And for 32 pence, I'm going to make sure that I write that as 0.32. So working with this question, I've got 9.00, I've got 1.56, I've got 0.32, and 7.39. And again, what I need to do is add those numbers up. So from this, what we've got is 0 plus 6 plus 2, which is 8, plus 9, which is 17. 1 plus 0 plus 5 is 6, and that gives me 12. And then 1 plus 9, which is 10, gives me 18. So all in all, he spends £18 and 27 pence. And then for B, what they need to do is work out the change. So for B, I've got 20.00, I've got £18 and 27 pence, and again, I'm taking away. So from this, I'm going to borrow 1 from the 2, so that becomes a 10, that becomes a 9, that becomes a 9, and that becomes a 10. So from this, we've got 10 take away 7, which is 3, 9 take away 2, which is 7, 9 take away 8, which is 1, and 1 take away 1, which is 0. So the change is £1 and 73 pence, and there is your final answer. So again, just to summarize, when adding and subtracting with decimals, it's important you remember those 3 main points that we covered at the start of the video. So 1, make sure that the decimal point is always directly underneath each other. If you have any whole numbers, make sure that you recognize that although you can't see a decimal point, the decimal point's always at the end like a full stop. And if you have any empty gaps, make sure you fill them with zeros. When it comes to money questions, always try and make sure that you're writing numbers in pounds, which is always a good option. And if you've got a whole number of pounds, then make sure you write 0.00, because it just makes adding, subtracting with pence involved in the question that little bit easier. Now there will be some questions in the description below for you to practice everything you've learned in this video.